Hi everyone, this is Dr. Houck with some feedback on your midterm exam. The grades were pretty good. You'll find them posted in your grade book. I don't do a feedback on each particular one. That would be a little bit cumbersome. And if you want to see your actual exam, the hard copy, because I download them and make hard copies out of all of them so I can grade them in a conventional fashion. They're all here in my office, so please feel free to come by. However, I'm guessing from your grade and also because of the fact that you actually have a copy of the exam in front of you, assuming that you saved it, you can go through this with me and pretty much check your own answers, I'm guessing. Okay, well first, the first page. Some of these I'll just call out answers to, and I guess if you have any further questions, obviously post them in the Ask Questions Here link so everyone can see them. Okay? Alright, number 1 is D. The most reasonable answer is D. You could probably use elimination pretty productively in that number 1, actually. Eliminate the other ones. That comes from the discussion of cultural relativism and so forth, the early modules. Number 2, from that reading, enculturation, B. Number 3, from the Hahn textbook, that would be D. I think that comes right out of the first chapter. Number 4, factor A combines with B, R, C, R, D to produce sickness. The best way to do this is to draw a diagram, sort of similar to the ones you find in the handout. So you'll have an A, and then plus, and you have B, R, C, R, D right below it. So what you need is, the situation is that you must have A. A must be present. So obviously A is a necessary factor. However, it's not sufficient because you need more than just A. You need either B, R, C, or D. So that's what the situation is. So now look at the choices, and the only one that would follow from that information would be D. Factor D is neither necessary nor sufficient. That is the only true statement of the 4. All right, number 5. In regard to the classification and general discussion of sickness and healing cross-culturally, that would be A, depression. The other ones are pretty straightforward. Universally recognized. A would be quite cultural, lots of cultural factors, and that's what would make it ambiguous in regard to treatment, etiology, etc. 6 would be cosmic imbalance. B. 7, that would be the Yanomamo people discussed in the shamanism reading that written by yours truly. Number 8, the Horner article, the sound of rushing water. That statement reflects cultural relativism. Pretty obvious reflection of that ideology. Number 9, the Hiviro shaman, abstention from sex is what makes them so powerful. Number 10, psychotherapeutic healing is very similar to the placebo effect. All right, true false. Number 11, there is nothing in our genetic makeup that pre-adapts us actually for any sort of cultural behavior. So that's true. Number 12, no, that is not true. In Kinsley, it was noted that in fact there are a lot of cultures, especially tribal cultures, that really don't differentiate between the two. To them it's just all one big world where everything is just conflated and mingled. Number 13, that is true, right from the reading from my book on spirit possession. Number 14, same article, yes, true. Number 15, also from the same article, false. And again, number 16 from the same article, also false. 17, it is not true that biomedicine is strictly empirical and scientific. It is very empirical and very scientific. But according to Hahn especially, it is somewhat cultural, as all medical systems are somewhat cultural, some more so than others. Number 18, well there you go. Same issue, 18 true. Number 19, Hyperesthesia means that they're exaggerating, not ignoring. That would be hypoesthesia. So 19 is false as written. Number 20, yes, that is true, and I think that's pretty sure that's in chapter 1 where you can find that information. Nominalism just means in name only, basically. So the notion of culture bound or local sickness is valid. Number 21, no. Hahn, in fact, adopts the model, remember the 3 models of, well, sickness cross-culturally. He adopts the one that does not place any sickness at either end of the spectrum. And so therefore, he would not label anything as exclusively culture bound. That's the nature-culture continuum model. All right, number 22, that's true. You have to know something about the cultural context to understand sickness, but you need to know more than that. So, for example, voodoo death. You can know all you want to know about sorcery and so forth, but if you don't know something about the physiology of what's going on, the psychology of what's going on, you can't understand it. So that's true. Number 23, yes, according to that perspective, remember, everything is either cultural or natural / biological, so that's true. Number 24, yes, according to Kinsley, yes, that is true. I think that's chapter 8 maybe. 25, no, you can actually set up places to do healing. So temporary places can be set up. So 25 is false. 26, no, it's the other way around actually. Shamans in the old world tend to use drumming, singing, and dancing, and shamans in the new world tend to use psychoactive, hallucinogenic pharmaceuticals to induce trance. So 26 false. 27, yes, there are bewitching shamans in the Juvenile culture. So 27 true. And then yes, 28 is true. Both of those straight from the article that you read, The Sound of Rushing Water. So 27 true, 28 true. 29, enculturation, E-N-C-U-L-T-U-R-A-T-I-O-N, enculturation. Number 30, amok. 31, and this comes from the article on spirit possession, dissociation, D-I-S-S-O-C-I-A-T-I-O-N. It's a standard term used in psychology for any aberrant sort of mental behavior. So it gives, quote-unquote, scientist a label for that behavior instead of calling it possession, because if you call it possession, then that means you're accepting the emic or native explanation of what's going on, and virtually no scientist does. So this allows them to have a term in which they can, well, it gives them a term that they can use to discuss this behavior without making it sound as if they're buying into the native explanation. 32, somatization. Somatization. So you're taking something that is psychological, but then you're trying to turn it into something physical or biological. Somatization. A shaman is the only type of healer that has real access to the spirit world. Sisto, soul loss, 34, sisto. 35, natima, right from the article. And then 36, you had a handout on this, the Rituale Romanum in the classic Latin, R-I-T-U-A-L-E R-O-M-A-N-U-M in Latin, the Roman ritual in English. Culture relativism. The core idea here is that no one culture serves as the standard by which others can be judged. In other words, cultures must be understood in their own context, and they're understood as being functional in their own context. So there's no judgments made regarding one culture being better than another, etc. Logical positivism, a couple of things I was looking for there, and this was right from the video. Logical positivism says knowledge is obtained from what we can measure, what we can experience, and what we can document. And also to it applies the rule of falsifiability. So a really strict empirical way of knowing. Logical positivism. Rule of falsifiability, statements that are not falsifiable are meaningless. And that's important you catch that. Not statements that are falsified, because if you think about it, that's a nonsensical statement. Or if you say statement, in other words, if you replace, I think I said it wrong, if you replace falsifiable with falsified and say statements that are not falsified are meaningless, well, that's a nonsensical statement, because virtually everything in your biology textbook hasn't been falsified, and of course it's not meaningless. So falsifiable. Statements that are not falsifiable, in other words, they don't even have the potential for being proven wrong, are meaningless. Not wrong or incorrect, simply meaningless. In other words, we can never know the truth or falsity of the claim. So therefore, it's a waste of time to even consider them. That's the point. Nosology is just a classification of sickness within a particular culture. Knowledge beyond culture, of course you had a written assignment on that, so we've been all through that. Basically also known as universal knowledge, the type of knowledge that is obtained from experimentation, objective methods, hypothesis testing, empiricism. In other words, the kind of knowledge that everyone has access to, because everyone can apply these methods the same. So we're talking loosely about scientific knowledge as opposed to cultural knowledge or more faith-based knowledge. Animism, the idea that all things, even inanimate objects, what we normally call inanimate objects like rocks and trees, are animated by some sort of spiritual force. Sweeping, this is a pretty specific deal here, and in the instructions it does say please be specific, underline. So you have to tell me that this is a Latin American deal or the American Southwest. In other words, a roughly New World Hispanic practice. So that's sort of essential because it's not done anywhere else. And of course the sweeping that most of you read about in the textbook comes from curanderismo, where they take an egg and they sweep it over the sick person, drawing out the sickness, and then they destroy the egg. Hikura, again, only the Yanomamo recognize the Hikura, so you need to specify that. So these are tiny humanoid beings recognized by the Yanomamo shaman, and they work with them to cure sickness. And that's right from the Shamanism article written by yours truly. Number 45. Basically, I would just like you to briefly explain the notion of psychotherapeutic healing. And there's a lot of things you could say here. I gave you guys a lot of latitude here. I just read through it, and as long as you didn't say anything that was totally incorrect, I let it go. What are some of the things that you would say? Well, one of the ways you can approach this is to contrast it with therapeutic healing. Therapeutic healing would be a situation whereby, for example, a person has some sort of bug. They're administered some sort of antibiotics. They take the antibiotics, and after a few days, the bug is dead. Person is healed. Okay, so real sickness, real medicine, real healing. Well, psychotherapeutic healing is just the converse of that. There is no sickness. There is no medicine. Although there is healing, but it's more along the lines of the placebo effect type of healing. It has to do with things like trust and confidence and enculturation, the power of suggestion, things of that nature. Anyway, so there you go. Number 46 specifically, now this is in the article on spirit possession from my book, The Spirits, Blood, and Drums. When drum beat frequencies match with alpha wave rhythms of the brain, then that induces a dissociative episode, or what the natives would call possession. So that's what I was looking for there. 47, now this came from, a lot of you probably heard me say something about this in the feedback to that particular written assignment. What strategy would you use to demonstrate that a supposed culture-bound syndrome is not in fact culture-bound? Well, easy. Just show that it's universal. So people are claiming that there's some sort of special sickness, and here are the symptoms, and then you're thinking, that sounds a whole lot like schizophrenia. Sounds a whole lot like epilepsy, whatever the heck. And so therefore all they've done is taken something that's universal and they've culturized it, so to speak. And so that in fact is how you would show that a culture-bound syndrome is not in fact culture-bound, you would simply show that it matches with behavior on a universal scale. 48. This comes straight from, this is pretty easy actually, just look at the little handout that you had available for you in this module. And on the handout, just reading right from the handout, one necessary factor was the cultural factors. The other necessary factor was the psychological and physiological trauma. You add both of those necessary factors together and you get eventual voodoo death. Number 49, this comes right from the Han textbook. I forget, I think it may be chapter 1, but they use bones from a wild pig and all sorts of other things that basically mimic strange, bizarre things in nature. Well, I shouldn't say mimic, but represent strange, bizarre things in nature that in turn mimics insanity. Anyway, so that you could just find that information right out the textbook. The nocebo effect, well, here's a good way, a nice parsimonious way to approach this. With the placebo effect, you have positive expectations result in positive outcomes. In this case, just turn it around. Negative expectations result in negative outcomes. A person expects to get sick, or expects harm to be done, or expects something bad to happen, and it does happen. One example, perfect example, is voodoo death. So negative expectations lead to negative outcomes. Number 51, the impact of culture on sickness. One of the problems I saw here, some of you made a mistake here because it's as if you were answering the question that said, describe one example that illustrates the impact of society, culture on healing. So not healing, but sickness. So that was one problem. And of course, there's lots of ways you can go there. There was one whole chapter, I think it was Han chapter 4, I'm pretty sure, that talked about for example, the relationship between per capita income and infant mortality. The examples from South Africa during apartheid, the tuberculosis rates and so forth and so on. Things like mediation, production, all of those things could have worked here. But that was the one problem I saw. The focus was on sickness here, not on healing. Number 52, I guess the basic difference here is that allopathy focuses on rooting out the symptoms and eliminating them. Rooting out the sicknesses and eliminating them. My screen went blank there for a second. I don't know if the camera killed or not, if the camera cut out or not. And then homeopathy, on the other hand, encourages symptoms. In other words, it helps the body use its natural defenses to fight disease. So that would be the primary difference there. Number 53, biomedicine is mechanistic, meaning that the body is considered to be a machine with discrete parts that can just be replaced or repaired, like a car or something. The body is a physical thing. It's it's a mechanical machine-like thing, and so I guess as Han might say, they're focusing on the cell of sickness rather than the soul of sickness, that kind of way. So treatment is analytical, part by part, as opposed to holistic. 54, simply put, object intrusion, or I think another choice is disease sorcery. So either one of the two. 55, state one specific example of transference. So you had, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them, didn't you? This egg sweeping thing, the doves, and the the Yoruba treatment for insanity using the doves. I think there was a mention of in India during exorcism, they transfer the offending spirit into something, I think it's a sandal or something. Anyway, in any case, any specific example that involves sending the sickness out into some object that is taken away and then destroyed. But I did need a specific example. 56, there's a lot in the reading on shamanism on this, also in the video on this. They're anti-structural. Well, first of all, that means that they're not behaving and not carrying on like everybody else does. So their status is different, it's special. So they're abstaining from sex. They're wearing special clothing. You know, they shave their heads. They live in special places. They have a special diet. Whatever the heck. Just something that brings them outside of culture. And that gives them a power because, I mean, there has to be a power there because after all, these are special people that are going to be entering the spirit world. Right? So they're not ordinary people with ordinary power. They're special people with special power by virtue of the lives they lead. Number 57, how might that affect psychotherapeutic healing? Well, you need three things. You need trust, confidence, you need faith in the system, you need a shared familiarity with the cultural ideology. And lacking all of these things, psychotherapeutic healing is simply not going to occur. So especially the trust and confidence are the things that you need, and you can't have that, obviously, if you've got people from two different cultures. Number 58, because quite simply, they will die. It's not their own synsac. And then number 59, describe the inclusionist nature culture continuum model of sickness, and you have extensive examples on that, material on that in the Hahn textbook, plus we had a written assignment on it, so we've covered that thoroughly. State where you would place anxiety disorders and why. I didn't really care where you put anxiety disorders. It's not necessarily a correct answer, but you had to defend your answer though. So here's some of the things I'm looking at. Anxiety is largely based on fear, and fear is largely cultural. So that's one aspect we need to look at. Also, too, though, anxiety is biochemical, because after all, it is treated pharmacologically with Pamelar, for example. So it's both cultural and biochemical or biological. So therefore, to me, the best argument can be made for placing it right in the center. Anyway, all you had to do was defend your answer here. Okay, if you have any questions about anything, just let me know. Thank you.